Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 7 of GardenStateHSWrestling.com podcast, Near Fall. I'm Donald J. Brower. We're a day late. Might be a little short with what we're talking about, but we're going to try to make up for it. We had some technical issues, but we're going to work through that. But before we get to the technical issues, let's deal with the money issues. Dan Warnikoff, Champion Athletes, the sponsor of this podcast, a man who has been helpful to the wrestling community. He's the guy you want to talk to if you want to get better. If you're an athlete, if you're not an athlete, if you are in state, if you're out of state, if you play any type of high school sport, or you just want to feel better about yourself, Dan Warnikoff, get with him about some meal plans. My family uses them. He's the type of guy you want to talk to. If you go buy a brand new car, a Porsche, you're not going to go down to, the city gas station and get the cheap crap stuff. You're going to put the top fuel, and your body's the same way. You have to deal with the fuel you put in your body if you want to be the best. Don't take my word for it. Look at his track record. Lots of Delbarton guys. I mean, all throughout the state and in different sports, Dan Warnikoff is proven. Dan is the man. That rhymes. I'm going to use that. Dan is the man. But thank you, Champion Athletes, for sponsoring us. Now, interesting week. Light week this past week. We had the Morris County tournament that started Friday. It was supposed to continue Saturday, but Mother Nature kind of came in and wiped out most of our Friday and Saturday schedule. So not a ton of matches. Some stuff was moved to this week, which actually helps me figure out some of my matches to cover. But some of the highlights of last week that came in before the storm. January 25th, I called it Rivalry Night because of how many rivalry matchups were in there. But two that really stick out to me was Delbarton beating Mount Olive 44-22. Mount Olive, while the score sounds different, was in it. They fought. It was very close from what people were there, and even Delbarton, there was a couple times they were a little worried, but Mount Olive's for real. And Mount Olive, I said this to a bunch of people. Mount Olive probably has an easier chance, and I don't know if I've ever heard this said, to win a group championship than they do to win their own conference. That's a tough thing when you're in there, but they have a real legit shot as they're going to be hosting coming up, and we'll be talking about obviously the sectionals and how they're broken down next week when we get into that before the podcast, is it'll all be broken down because now the Super Bowl is going to kind of change how stuff is done, but we'll talk about that later. Another match the same night. This is one of those matchups that there's always kind of a hitch in the rankings, and this kind of threw a whole monkey wrench and maybe a couple pipe bombs in there, but it was Morris Hills beating Morris Knolls 35-27. That'll kind of reflect in my rankings, and I'm going to explain where certain people are and why they are. And as I said in the very first podcast, if you go and listen back, the bottom 5 from 5 on, just it's throwing them against the wall and seeing, who wins this week, because it's just they're basically beating each other up, and that usually wasn't the case the last few years. You kind of had a clear definition of where everybody went. This week was very tough. And then obviously the Morris County tournament, like I said, it was delayed till Sunday. Delbarton won its 13th straight, had multiple champions. I think at one point they won, if I'm counting off the top of my head, I want to say they won 8 championships in a row from 126 up. I know it was, Delbarton, and there's some just really great kids, and we'll talk about them. Actually, one of the reasons we were delayed was obviously the interviews. My apologies to everybody. I came and I went and I interviewed everybody. The problem that we had was I had a small little problem when I came home as I was uploading my videos and doing everything. And, I don't want to blame anybody, but this is the culprit right here. Yep. That 8-month-old German Shepherd who came running in and knocked a bottle of water onto my computer, which shorted it out. Hence, the footage was destroyed. And I mean, we've recovered some, but just it's for whatever reason, the sound's not right and it's just very pixelated. So I kind of remember what people were saying. So we'll start with kind of the winners, and we'll talk about, what they said. First matchup, Evan Mckay was the winner. He talked about how happy he was to be a 3-time champ and how he missed it last year. And, it was great to come out and get those 3 because he always thought it was one of his favorite tournaments. Then you go to Tyler Vazquez, who from Delbarton, who won at 132. He talked a lot about how he wanted to show and turn it on and just kind of show he's at a different level and prove to people that he's a wrestler to be taken seriously. Another wrestler from Delbarton, his teammate, Alessio Parenton, a freshman, was just really thrilled to be in the moment, was very happy to have won, and is looking forward to a great career at Delbarton, especially going forward. In a matchup of number 1 versus number 2 in the state, Karos Wazalewski from Delbarton defeated Joe Fungardo in a very close match. Went to second overtime, tiebreaker 1. The difference was he held down Joe in the first 30 seconds. Joe let him up thinking he'd get the takedown. He couldn't, so he wound up losing by 1 point. Cross was just really happy, and decided to win. He enjoyed the match, and he just said he realized he's going to see Joe again, and it's a good test for them going forward. Andrew Jasinski won it as well. He was the 150 champion, defeated Jason Smith in a tight match. He was super excited to come over and talk to us. I've rooted for that kid since his last time in AC when he lost and how disappointed he was. And my wife's not a wrestling fan, so my wife was super happy for him last year when he won the state title because he was just so disappointed his sophomore year. So he came over and kind of talked about just getting ready and how happy he was that the tournament was back. This was kind of my surprise at 157. And it's really, you're happy to see this, but junior Henry Forte from Delbarton, he wound up getting in the lineup because there was an injury to one of the upper weights for Delbarton. They bumped the guys up, Ruiz and Sergio, so he got the spot, and he winds up winning it. And Coach Big, who was with me at the interview, asked him, what are you going to do for getting ready for the state tournament? He goes, I'm not. This is my state tournament. He says, my job is to get everybody better in the room, so this is my state tournament. So really classy, and you're happy when you see those kids do it. And he was the 10th seed, and it's not uncommon for Delbarton to have a really low seed like that. They had their heavyweight 5 years ago, who was the 12th seed, who was the tied for the lowest seed to win the tournament with Bone from Jefferson, who was the first as a 12th seed 7-8 years ago. Then Simon Ruiz, Delbarton, he came over. He was super excited and getting ready for Bergen Catholic, hopefully in the state sectionals coming up. Lou Sergio came over. First thing he said to me was, happy to meet you in person, because the first time I interviewed Lou was last year at States over Zoom. So he was very happy to be on camera and talk, and just kind of told me how, enjoyable the tournament was and everything. Vincenzo Laval won at 190 for Hanover Park. For you wrestling fans, his father's James Laval, former head coach, 3-time state champion, 4-time medalist. Got more of a quote from him in the first 10 seconds than I've ever got from his dad. And I told his dad that, but he was really happy. And, as a freshman, did give me some strange math because he said he can't wait to win it 4 more times. So if he wins it 4 more times, there might be an issue with staying back and such, but excuse me. So that was fun. Kind of one of my favorite, and I really feel upset we didn't get a chance to hear from him at 215 was Diego Akcay from Morris Hills. Came through upset. The one thing he really, really kept emphasizing was how much Coach Wayne Shealy, who passed away recently, had helped him get better in the offseason. And he basically dedicated his run to Coach Shealy. So it was real emotional. And Joey was there as Coach Shealy's son. So it was a really big moment. And I know it was one last one for Coach. So it was really, really a fun interview. Heavyweight, Dylan Patcher. His main thing was he talked about how he was going to go out there and set his mind that he, on a path and just dominate. And that's what he did. He wound up getting the pin in his final match within the first 20 seconds. He was just steamrolling. So, I mean, he was very, very, very intense in that match. And I think it's going to go really well for Jefferson. 106, Tyler Hagginson from Mount Olive, another interview I kind of wish we had somehow retrieved. His brother had wrestled from Mount Olive, and his mother told me as I was leaving, as they were pushing their leftover pretzels and food on the fat guy as he's walking out, that it was his first interview, and I felt really bad that it got ruined. But we're going to try and see what we can do. But I'm sure we'll be hearing from him in Mount Olive going forward. Number 113, Daniel Jones from Delbarton, not the quarterback. I made the joke, and I think he's sick of it because it just seems like that's what everybody seems to talk about. But He's another one to say he was very happy to meet me and talk in person. But he's excited, and he won a state title, but he was very happy with how his tournament went and knows how tough that it could be. So he ranks us right up there with that. And Luke Stanich from Roxbury, his brother Troy has won it. His cousin Ricky Reimers has done very well, and he's a junior. He was very excited to win, and he went out there and did, and he said it was his goal, and he says now he's got bigger goals, heading into the obviously the team in the individual postseason. I wouldn't be surprised if we're talking about him on our state medalist or even state champion podcast at the end of the year. But those are kind of a summary of the interviews as they happened at the Morris County tournament. Also, before we get into what we're covering this week, thank you to everybody who reached out to me, who came over while I was recording, who did that, and came over and said how they were big fans and everything. I never wanted me not covering it to take away from the kids, because my biggest thing, and I know other people have the live stream, that's their situation. I don't know how it happened. I've been told different stories, but I don't look at the kids as a commodity. I love wrestling, and I love seeing these kids achieve their dreams. So I felt it would have been a disservice to those kids who I cover, because that's what it's about. It's about the kids. And I didn't want to make it about me. I wasn't trying to, but I noticed there was just a lot of people like shaking my hand, slapping me on the back. Thank you. Glad you came. So thank you for the support. But I didn't want to make it about me. But, I want to take a moment, just kind of thank everybody who came up to me, shook my hand, talked to me, wrestlers who have been there, I'd covered when I first started to now. We'll see what happens. I mean, like I said, even though I'm going to be transitioning to more of the Garden State HS wrestling and doing stuff with Hunterdon, Warren, Sussex, Passaic, and some other counties, you're never going to tune out Morris. Morris has a rich tradition and history. We're going to have really good teams. As we said, Delbarton's really good. Mount Olive's around. 1 and 2 in the Morris County tournament with Hanover Park 3. West Morris was very impressive too, finishing 4th, and Montville 5th. But I didn't want to take away anything from the kids. I'll probably have my foot in, my toe in the water, just keeping an eye on it, because you'll never shut it out. Because any reporter that kind of just ignores an area when it's a big part of what's going forward, not only in their area, but the state, that's just ludicrous. And, I know people weren't exactly thrilled with some of the coverage they saw. That's nothing I could do about that. I tried my best, and, I did what I could with what I had, finding out at the pretty much last minute in the game, if you want to call it as close as you can, that it wasn't going to happen. But I digress. But once again, thank you very much. And, all the well wishes were read and everything. If I didn't get back to everybody, thank you. Now, let's focus on this week. A little later tonight, because it should be coming out early Tuesday. A couple matches I want to highlight. First, in the American division, we talked about a rivalry matches last week. Here's another one. Mendham at West Morris. Now, I would have said Mendham should take this going away. West Morris has been wrestling tough. Sure, they give up a couple forfeits, but they're getting the bonus points. So that's going to be a really good matchup. If I wasn't somewhere else tomorrow night, I'd be there. And another really good matchup that should be a battle, Jefferson at High Point. Jefferson's going to have a tough week. They got some really good matchups coming up that's going to really test them in their division. But that's not our money match of the week. Our Stefanelli Financial money match of the week is the battle that was supposed to happen Saturday, but will now be being live streamed on GardenStateHSWrestling.com tonight, is the Delaware Valley Terriers making the trip up to the Warren Hills Blue Streaks for the Skylands Conference Valley Division. Both teams come in at 3-0 in the division. Delaware Valley lost a tight one, 29-28 last night to Hunterdon Central. Coming in at 12-4. Warren Hills, 11-3. Warren Hills is the favorite to be Group 3 champion. It's going to be a really, really good matchup. So that's going to be where we're going to be at tomorrow. But that's not the only good action this week. On February 4th, that same Del Val team, they're going to be hosting Peaburg. That's going to be a great matchup if you get out there. And we talked about High Point and Jefferson, they're going to be wrestling the two other teams in their conference, in the Freedom Conference or Freedom Division. High Point is going to travel to Newton, and Jefferson is going to go to Kittatinny. Now, that'll decide who is going to be the Freedom Division champion. We still have a High Point Newton match coming up that should be coming up soon, but that'll be kind of a big test for Jefferson to see where they stand in the division, as they're tied right now with High Point 1-0 in the division. Kittatinny's 1-1 right now. So we'll see how everything breaks down and how everything goes. So actually, I will make a correction as we talk. Kittatinny has already lost to High Point. I forgot that. That was actually in my notes. So strike that. High Point beat Kittatinny recently. So Jefferson has a chance, if they can win both matches, to win the division outright. Now, there's still a chance if they beat High Point and lose, there's always tie and possibility, but let's not put the cart before the horse and see what happens. We'll just hopefully everybody, there's a straight out winner, because the half trophy thing is so annoying. I hate that. Now, before we get to my top 10, my question of the week comes from Daryl. Daryl is from Mount Olive. Daryl asked, what was my favorite gym to wrestle in? What was my least favorite gym to wrestle in? That was actually a good question. So my favorite gym to wrestle in, honestly, I didn't have really a favorite gym. I enjoyed when my family was there. So like when I was at home matches at Warren Hills, or when I was younger, and my grandfather, before he passed away, my grandfather on my dad's side passed away when I was 15. When he got to come to some of the matches, we had some at my one high school, Chancellor Academy. So he came and saw that. So those were always kind of my favorite, just when my family was there. My least favorite, I don't know if I would say my least favorite, but it was very intimidating. Two schools. The old pit at Peaburg was just, you felt like you were going to get attacked, and not like that the Phillipsburg people were mean. They were just like right on top of you where the gym was. So it was very intimidating that way. And then the other thing that the other one that kind of threw me was, we talked about them a little bit before, Kittatinny. Now, I don't know how many people have made that trip up there, but we went from Warren Hills up there my senior year, and you come across that one-lane bridge, the double one-lane bridges. And I was like, where the hell are we going? I didn't know if we were going to be in one of these, one of these horror movies. I was going to be like Cabin in the Woods or nothing, but that was just one of the weirdest, but I had fun. There was no real gyms that I hated going to. So, you're out there on the mat, all the gyms are the same. It's four walls, fans screaming at you. I didn't mind if I got booed or cheered. So it was whatever it was, but thank you for that question. I don't know if we answered that early in the year too, but I mean, that's been a question we've gotten a lot, and please keep the questions coming. admin@GardenStateHSWrestling.com. I know a lot of people have questions for me and want to ask about it. And we've got a couple about the sections next week. My predictions, I'm going to be doing them for obviously some, the areas I handle, Hunterdon, Warren, Sussex, and Morris. We're going to attempt, hopefully, I might be covering a sectional final. We'll see who advances. I have a couple of feelers out there. And I know people have been asking me where I'm going to go as far as everything goes. Right now, if everything goes the way it is, we are going to be covering a region final. We're just not sure which one yet. We're waiting on this, the state and NJ.com to kind of say where they're going. And we have a couple. And I know, West Milford's hosting one. I know North Hunterdon actually has Region 4, so I'm sure that'll be broadcast and such. But we got a lot of action coming up. Speaking of action, there's been a lot of action in the rankings. Now, I've already talked about a matchup that kind of shook it up, was that Morris Hills over Morris Knowles matchup, because it was kind of a strange ladder effect, like who beat who. So it shook up my rankings. I had to eliminate the problem. So here's what we did. My first in is Newton. They lost by 3 to Kittatinny, and the way Kittatinny's been on a roll and the way Newton's been, that's a big matchup. So Newton is my first in. Number 10 is Butler. They won the Division 4 championship from the NJIC. They're going for the conference championship. I knew they had just beaten Pompton Lakes earlier, late last week by 5. So they're advancing. Butler's my number 10. Mendham drops down to number 9. Mendham. Had a good week, like solid showing at the MCT, but they're my number 9. Number 8, Morris Knolls. Morris Knolls lost to Hills, but had beaten Mendham earlier, so I have to put them ahead of them. Jefferson is number 7. Now, here's where it gets a little strange because people are going to ask, well, Jefferson was higher. How did you move Hills over Jefferson? Well, Hills had beaten Jefferson earlier in the season, and I had Knolls there, and I know Jefferson had beaten Knolls. So when I wound up putting everything together, I said, you know what? Jefferson's got to stay where they're at. Hills has got to jump up past Jefferson. The biggest problem they had was the Montville. Montville drops out. So now you have Knolls with what they did. And, I wasn't sure with Knolls and Jefferson. Jefferson didn't beat Knolls. Jefferson, was in that range, but with Knolls, I wasn't sure. So I that's how I did it. It was tough this week with those, but those are kind of my main. And then I even had a debate if I was going to have Hills go above Pope John, but I said, you know what, I'm going to keep. That's how it is. So Pope John's my number 5. Kept them, at number 5. Kittatinny stayed at number 4. Good week for them. Nothing that jumped out off the page, but they were really solid. High Point's locked in at number 3. They lost to Mount Olive. They beat Kittatinny. Unless somebody kind of just really steamrolls them, or like a Jefferson comes in and beats them. High Point's locked in at number 3. Mount Olive is my number 2. Mount Olive is climbing up not only the state rankings for other publications, but the New Jersey Wrestling Writers Association. I think we had them 7th. They're the second best non-public team in the state. They should win the Group 4 championship. Nothing but respect for Mount Olive and their program. And number 1's Delbarton. Number 1 team in the state, should win another state title this year, is wrestling everywhere and beating everyone. I mean, they're beating, winning Catholic tournaments all around. They were just in Virginia on the 15th about 2 weeks ago. Won that. I mean, there's nobody beating them. I mean, and if anything, if Henry Forte proved anything, their backups and JV could probably beat a lot of these varsity teams. But those are my top 10. So as far as my wrestler of the week, I kind of think I gave it away when I was talking a little bit about him, and kind of how impressed I was with his whole setup. You kind of, when you look at my predictions, which I'm very transparent with my predictions on the website. I had posted my MCT predictions on Friday, and I'll go back and I'll tell you how I did. And I was pretty good with some of the winners. I mean, there was a few that I missed, but I got most of the winners right, because you kind of understand and you see how it works. My wrestler of the week has to be when I look at everything, because you're going to see guys who win. My wrestler of the week, I'm doing co-wrestlers of the week this week. There's 2 wrestlers that really stuck out to me at the tournament, and we talked about them already. The 157 from Delbarton, Henry Forte, he's one of my wrestlers of the week. And Diego Akcay from Morris Hills, he's another wrestler of the week. 2 guys who just, were very, very impressive this weekend, and, for different reasons of winning the championship, but those guys are my wrestlers of the week. And congratulations, guys. You guys earned it. Now, before we go, again, thank you to everybody who reached out. We're going to have some big news coming up. Like I said, we're going to be doing some more live streaming for the rest of the year. I will be down in Atlantic City. We're going to have podcasts at the end, kind of, I'm going to try to do daily, more of a wrap up for Thursday and Friday, just kind of highlight some stuff. But Saturday afterwards, I'm going to try to get a interview with all medalists from the area. I'm going to also try to get a interview with champions, and that's going to be, we'll see how we can get on there, as far as getting everything released with that. The champions one probably most likely will be up that Sunday after, just due to the simple fact of got to get home. You live 2.5 hours away. I'm not trying to do that on their horrible Wi-Fi in that building, but we'll see. But I'm going to get everything done with what we can and try to keep everybody entertained. And like I said, if this is my last couple of weeks month or so, covering Morris County on a daily basis. It's been a pleasure. I'm going to keep doing what I do for other places that I feel, might step up and appreciate a little more. And, join me for the fun ride, because, they always say the most dangerous man is the man with nothing to lose. And if I'm on the roller coaster and it's the final dips, you never know what might come out of my mouth. So take that as a promise, take that as a warning, take that as whatever you want to take it as. It's on you. Remember, follow us on Twitter at Garden State HSW. Follow us on YouTube at Garden State HSW. Go to GardenStateHSWrestling.com. You have all the stuff up there. If you have any questions, admin at GardenStateHSWrestling.com. If you want to contribute, there's the link up there for the PayPal. You can check out the videos. You can check out everything else. But until next week, for Jared, the podcasting legend, I'll see you next week, later tonight on the live stream. But as far as podcasting goes, I'm Donald J. Brower. I'll see you next time.